I don't think I need to tell you that for most girls, the moment they walk down the aisle with their father and look into the eyes of their fiancé is probably the most emotional moment of their lives, because that's when the new chapter begins. And that's what it was like for the woman in our video. Although it wasn't just a special day for her, but rather an extraordinary one. It should be mentioned that dozens of guests at her wedding turned speechless when they saw what she did. But first things first. Jackie Guncher is a 25-year-old woman from the state of Georgia who's had to face some tough times in her life. She went from being a teenage girl who enjoyed an active lifestyle to a wheelchair-bound young woman. Happy and athletic, Jackie always craved adventures and loved sports. But one day, she got a serious spinal injury from an accident at a swimming pool. Jackie became paralyzed from the neck down at age 17. I think it goes without saying that her life changed drastically that day. Even though the girl believed that there was hope of recovery, the doctors were firm about it, saying that Jackie's diagnosis meant that she would never be able to walk and would spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. The young woman refused to accept this new reality and was deeply depressed for about 6 months. She didn't want to socialize with anyone or do anything. The days dragged on, and it seemed that her despair would never pass. However, one day, one meeting changed everything. Jackie was in the park when a young man approached her and asked to take a walk with her. The girl was a little taken aback by the offer, but she still accepted. And let me jump ahead and say that Andrew, that was the young man's name, fell in love with Jackie at first sight. So they began to meet regularly, and after a year of dating, the man proposed to her. And of course, Jackie said yes. And it's also worth saying that it was after her meeting with her now husband, 35-year-old Andy Goncher, that Jackie decided that she won't just walk herself to the altar, but will even dance at her wedding. And that was despite all the doctor's prognosis. The woman got to work, stubbornly refusing to get stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Of course, Jackie realized that she was going down a hard road, but she was ready for it. The girl worked tirelessly. She spent hours training at the gym, strengthening her core muscles. Jackie was determined to be able to walk up to the groom at her wedding with her own 2 feet. And when the long-awaited and exciting day came, none of the wedding guests had any idea what would happen next. When Jackie rolled into the hall, accompanied by her mother and her grandfather, no one was surprised. But when the wheelchair stopped halfway down the aisle and the girl began to stand up on her own, everyone was extremely impressed. The hall immediately fell silent as everyone was watching with their mouths open. And the next moment, Jackie stood up from her wheelchair and moved slowly towards her fiancé. No one knew that the girl was working on this surprise, not even Andy. So when the groom saw what was happening, he couldn't help himself and burst into tears. He wasn't the only one crying. The moment was so emotional that none of the guests could hold back their tears. Jackie managed to stand up for the full 45 minutes of the ceremony. And then she even danced the first dance. But she didn't stop at that. Jackie spent most of the 5-hour party on her feet. The guests couldn't believe their eyes. Jackie was irresistible. It took her a few years of hard training to stand up on her feet. However, she didn't do it just for herself, but also for the love of her life. Jackie says that if it wasn't for Andy, none of this would have happened. After all, it was Andy who became her greatest motivation when he approached the woman in a wheelchair and made the most ordinary day into the one that changed her life forever. And this young woman chose the happiest day of her life to prove to the world that you should never give up. Jackie plans to continue her training and hopes to get back to her regular life. There's no doubt that this woman deserves great respect for her willpower and the strength of her character. So friends, let us know in the comments if you like the story of this girl and her wedding. And that's it for today. Like our video and see you soon. Bye.